Okay, I think I'm just going to jump into this, right?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay,
Fire up.
the Lakefront Committee meeting of the Park District of Highland Park is called to order on this Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021 at 4:01 p.m. Pursuant to Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act, the President of the Board of Park Commissioners has made a finding that it's not practical or prudent to hold in-person meetings because of the COVID-19 public health emergency. Neither the elected officials nor the public will be allowed to attend regular or committee meetings in person, but will participate virtually. Links to the virtual meeting can be found on the Park District website. Roxanne, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Kaplan,
Speaker is not working.
It's working.
Oh, Barney's here.
Commissioner Freeman,
Here.
Vice President Grossberg,
Here,
and President Ruttenberg.
sort of here.
Barney, can we, is your mic working? Can you use the chat function? Are you, now you're muted. Can you hear and see us?
Barney, can you see us?
Blink once, yes. Twice for no.
Oh, Barney.
All right, well,
I will communicate with
okay.
see if there's anything we need to do.
Okay, so I'm going to move on then. Our Executive Director Romes, are there any additions to the agenda?
None from staff, no.
Okay. Also, is there anyone from the public attending tonight's meeting?
There are currently 4 people in attendance.
All right, anyone wishing to speak will need to use the raised hand function in Zoom to indicate that they would like to speak. The board secretary will call on registrants who have activated the raise hand feature in alphabetical order. Executive Director Romes, okay, anyways. Is there anybody raising their hand?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, well, they'll have a chance a little bit later on if they need to speak. Approval of the Lakefront Committee meeting minutes from November 4th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Oh,
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
hi.
Aye.
Motion carries. We move quickly to Director Smith, who is going to do the Park Avenue Wave Protection and Breakwater Replacement Project update.
Just noting, it looks like President Ruttenberg is now, audiovisual is working.
Fantastic. So we're all ready for you, Mr. Smith.
All right, thank you very much. To confirm, could everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to give an update on the Park Avenue Breakwater and Boat Ramp Replacement Project. So I'll start here. Just a reminder of where we've been and where we're going. We are in the final phase 3 of the project that Smith Group is working on. 3.1 was optimize the breakwater and layout. And this was the delivery date for that. And Smith Group did complete that. And that was the previous presentation back in October. And then they moved forward with the next step, which is design development. And that they have now completed. And that's what I will be providing a summary of this evening. And they've also completed 3.3, which is permit application. So they have met with permitting agencies, started to work some of those details out, and submitted plans and applications for that process to begin. And then the final step, 3.4, is the final construction documents. You can see there, January 14th is the final delivery date for those. So we'll talk about the design development, see if the committee has any feedback, and then we would pass that on to Smith Group to make any changes prior to moving to this final stage. All right, so here's just a quick reminder of the design of the breakwater we've talked about before, where we have this sheet pile and this walking surface similar to the barge that was there. I wanted to point out one thing here, because this is a change that Smith Group did make based on feedback from the previous meeting. In this sketch, you can see how the breakwater ends a little further west than the actual parking lot, whereas the barge structure used to line up with the parking lot. There's a little bit of kind of a corner right here. So just keep that in mind when we move on. So this is the existing conditions. Here is the breakwater structure that's there now. And then we have the launch ramp. And then on the west side is our floating dock. And now this is showing what the proposed plan is. So this is the new breakwater structure. And as I mentioned in that previous sketch, it was set back further here, but now they have shifted it down to align with the edge of the parking lot. And there was a few reasons why they originally had it in the other location, but they took the feedback that they received from the last meeting, the concerns. And one of Smith Group's concerns was that it would potentially put us outside of the footprint of the existing structure. But this particular design has been shown to the regulatory agencies, and they've confirmed that it would be considered within the same footprint. The armor stone along the edge falls pretty much in the same footprint. So it won't be an issue from a permitting standpoint. And secondly, you'll see at the end of this presentation an updated opinion of probable construction cost. And they do not feel that it would be any additional cost to do this, even though it will widen the boat ramp by about 5 feet. And so here we've talked about, we have floating docks on both sides of the ramp. It's difficult to see from this, but I will say one change that occurred from the previous drawings from Smith Group and their previous cost estimate was they had the floating docks at 80 foot long each, and they've now extended that to 100 feet. So they're each 100 feet long. And nothing's changed here, but I just want to remind everyone, this is a cross section of the breakwater. And on the far east side, we had the small parapet wall, which is kind of curved here to help block some of the wave energy and direct it back into the lake. So you had that small wall. Right now it's about 2 feet high. It's not finalized yet, but about 2 feet high on that side. And so there has been some refinement with the boat ramp, the docks, and the style. So this is what we're currently showing. A little different than our current floating dock system, but this is something we're excited about and think it would be a nice improvement. So we have a concrete abutment here that's permanent, and then you have the floating sections here, and there's a hinge that connects the concrete with the dock section. They're in 20-foot sections, and so they'll adjust with the water height. Now, I will start by saying that this is from a location where the water is obviously varies in height, a lot different than ours. The poles will not be near this high. It probably won't be much higher than the height of the breakwater structure. But the idea is that it adjusts in all water levels. So if the water was up to, let's say, this point, then this section right here would also be floating. So it adjusts, and when it's not floating, it's now I'm going to go on back to the breakwater structure and talk about some of the fixtures on the structure. So we talked about there being benches placed. So in the drawings right now, these that I've circled in red are all the benches that we're showing. We're showing 6 benches facing out on the east side of the breakwater. We also have 2 navigation lights, and we are showing a bollard and chain system along the west side of the breakwater and also along the south end. And these are removable. Very, very similar to what was on the barge, where this is something that would be taken off in the winter because it would not withstand the ice, it would be far too damaged, but then it can easily be put back in. And then there's also a permanent bollard that would go along here that obviously would stop anyone from driving a vehicle onto the breakwater. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we had the parapet wall along the east side. In Smith Group's current plan and their current cost proposal, they weren't showing a bollard and chain on the east side. However, staff are considering this as probably a good option. So the reasoning for having the bollard and chain on the west side right now was really to separate the pedestrian activity from the boating. We want to avoid, someone hanging out here on the breakwater and then just walking into the floating dock or going back and forth. Those are two separate things. You're going to have people enjoying the lake and people trying to get in and out of their boats. And the thought was, though, that if we added the bollard and chain along the east side, we could do it. Actually, I'm going to go back to a photo here. Here's that parapet wall. The bollard and chain could go right here. That would, obviously, from a safety standpoint, that would be a good thing. And it also would deter people from trying to stand, sit, or jump off the parapet wall. You won't see that additional east side bollard and chain in the cost proposal, but it's something that we are interested in getting a cost from Smith Group to potentially include as well. And here is the benches that Smith Group is currently specifying. And it's likely that these benches would be removed in the winter. This is what we've done in the past on the barge, where the benches were removed in the winter season and then returned in the spring. And then here's a rendering showing the idea of this bollard and chain. And I will add that as far as code requirements go, based on the parameters here and the height and the water levels, we are not required to have any type of railing. However, we certainly feel like there are some benefit in having something. So this is the railing that they're recommending that staff certainly thinks is a good fit. So just to summarize some of the changes from the previous presentation to now at the end of this phase. Like I said, the breakwater has shifted east to align with the parking lot. We've increased the width of the boat ramp by 5 feet. We've also, now they've determined that it would be the concrete abutments for the floating docks and increase the length of the floating dock by additional 20 feet on each side. And then the guide piles, that's the post we talked about for the floating dock, that system is what's being proposed. And then the addition of bollard and chain on the breakwater. So with all of that said, this is the current cost estimate. So at the end of this phase, we get an updated cost estimate, and you'll see on the far right is the previous cost estimate that was shared with the board when Smith Group presented, and that was in October. And then this is our current cost estimate. While some of the line items have adjusted, and this comes from getting a better understanding of the project and being able to refine some of this, you'll see in the end, we're actually at the exact same price. So I guess the good news here is that we've increased the ramp by several feet and also increased the length of the boarding docks, but we still have an estimate that's identical to what it was the previous month. So I want to touch on some just some next steps. So once we receive, staff will continue to review these drawings, and also we'll receive feedback from this committee. We'll share that with Smith Group, and then they will move forward with the next step, which is beginning the final construction documents. And then Smith Group will be returning to the workshop meeting on December 7th to provide an update to the board. And then we are targeting January 14th for the completion of these construction documents. And then later that month, we plan to release the bid for this project. We will likely award that bid in March of 2022. And then we're aiming for our construction in September of 2022. With that said, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, let's go from last to join to first. So, Mr. Commissioner Bernstein, are you there? Do you have any questions?
Yes, no questions.
Okay, and how about President Ruttenberg?
Yeah, I have several. Jeff, what's the current length of the floating dock that we use?
I believe it's around 100. I'm going to show you the photo. I'm going to back up here. But you can see, actually, it looks like it's slightly longer in this overlay of where the dock will go, and here's the current floating dock.
Okay,
So it's right around 100 feet.
so that's good because, and especially with the 5-foot extra width, I think we've improved the performance and the safety of this operation. The length of the floating dock will accommodate 2 boats, and if the water's shallow, it gives some maneuverability. I think that's good. The north bollards that separate our facility from the parking lot,
Mhm.
can I assume that they're removable so that we can get a vehicle out there?
Yeah, so I described them as permanent, but they're removable, just not as easily removable than these. But yes, they would still be removable in certain circumstances.
Okay, because we do need, I think, access to maintain the lights at the end, and it will facilitate, I think, Parks Department doing things out there.
Correct. Yeah, that's an exact conversation we had with Smith about this.
Okay. Let me say, I definitely think the benches are cool. And when we look at bollards, we should think about the architectural similarity between the bollards and the benches. That's just an aesthetic point. There's no question in my mind as a user of this facility, which I have been for 15 years before the last 3, 4, we do need the chains. We do need the bollards. We need some way to keep the public on the deck and not using it as a springboard for teenagers to dive into the lake. And I think the chains will help. Might not completely stop it, but it will help. I've seen people take a leap off the edge no matter what we do, but it's very dangerous there because of the rocks that are under the water. Jeff, why are there 2 navigation lights?
That's what was recommended. I can certainly talk to them and find out the need for that.
Well, I can see a need perhaps to have the middle one as a light to give some light into the boat launch after hours.
Mhm.
But then also, are we providing a way for the yacht club to put up their windsock?
I'm certainly that can be figured out. We haven't discussed that.
Okay, just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'm making a note.
All right, no, I think this is, obviously the best project, and I'm glad that, things are lining up this way. But I do have one question, and that's the timing. And I'll bring it up because I'm the naysayer, but I'm not saying no to this. How do we go out for bids if, what's our deadline to get all the funds? When do we get the grant money? I don't want to be irretrievably committed with a contract if we don't have the prerequisites in place, which is the fundraising and the grant.
So the grant is the $200,000 grant for the boat access area program, and that would cover some of the ancillary features such as the benches, the bollards, things like that. We're anticipating late winter on that, so February or March that we would hear about that.
Okay, so we'll know if we get the grant before we go to bid.
It would be the goal would be before we approve the bids, but we would want to release the bid before that.
Okay, because if you remember, we had a couple of conditions that are still underlying our proceeding with this project, and that is that we get the approval for the grant and we have the fundraising completed.
Yes.
With cash in the bank. So I don't mind going out for bid as long as we don't, give anybody the assurance that we're going to sign a contract.
Sure.
Other than that, I think this is wonderful. And again, I think there's an opportunity to have some cool aesthetics. Those benches are cool. Let's, think about, and the new ramp that you're putting in looks very good too. So I'm just saying, let's keep it in that style. My last question, Jeff, are we removing permanently what used to be the supervisor's hut? I don't know if there's any purpose to have it out there anymore.
I'm going to leave that to Director Carr to answer. It's more of an operational thing.
Okay, Thank you.
Sure.
I can quickly answer while I'm on the call. We are looking at some type of structure that our staff would utilize, but that hut it's met its useful life.
Oh,
We
yeah,
definitely
but
have to replace it with something.
when you say for our staff to utilize for what? We're not going to have somebody staffing the boat launch ramp.
So this year, we did have a coordinator on site, and our plan is to continue to have a staff presence down there temporarily while we kind of work through where to place them. We placed them inside the yacht club this year, and we may continue to do that, but we also may look at a different structure as well. But it wouldn't be anything elaborate. It would be similar to what we've had there in the past.
Okay, well, let me just stay with that for a minute. One of the prime reasons for putting in the gate was to control access with the thought that we would not need a person down there all the time. So it seems like we're taking a step backwards.
So this is more of not necessarily the access. This is more management of the entire property from north to south, the rules, the regulations, the safety, without having lifeguards there, of course, but to try to help manage the property and not necessarily like somebody accessing the property through their vehicle.
Well, that's something for a subsequent conversation, but I think that the whole purpose was to eliminate that staff person. But okay, that's another conversation. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kaplan,
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Freeman,
A comment that I like to see, more shape, taking more shape, and we're adding some things and potentially not adding costs, but really being thoughtful about what's down here. So I appreciate the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, I have no questions, but echo Commissioner Freeman's sentiments. Can't wait to see this thing develop. Okay, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. Thank you for your hard work on this very important issue. Is there any other business from staff or board? Okay.
There is no other. Go ahead, President Ruttenberg.
How are the plans coming for the north side, and how will it integrate into the development of the south side?
Do you want to take that, Jeff, or?
I'd be happy to. So we have funds budgeted for next year for the north side. However, we are not moving forward with anything with that until we know about the OSLAG grant. As it's a matching grant, we have matching funds budgeted for that.
So there's nothing we can do to make the north side look better without the grant?
Well, as far as implementing, I was referring to implementing the phase 1 of the master plan.
Right, no, I understand.
The north side.
No, I'm just hoping that we could do something to make it look better, maybe because I know we've got all sorts of internal plans, for example, for landscaping. I don't know if that's part of the grant, but there should be some steps that we could take. And one thing I'd recommend is taking away the come sail with us North Shore Yacht Club sign that's already getting old and tacky. But I'm just saying, let's make a point of doing something for the general public and not just something for the boaters.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody on the call, on the Zoom, that wishes to speak at this time?
There is one hand raised if you want to allow for public comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Roxanne, do you want to let in Peter Mordini? He has his hand raised. There he is.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Peter.
Yeah, I agree with Barney. The light, the navigation light in the middle, there usually was a floodlight there, so that would help coming in and out in the middle there. If it is a navigation light, all they have to do is put a floodlight below it since everything's there, but that's what we had in the past. Currently, it's on the hut almost, and it's pointing at you and it's blinding you, so that middle area would probably be better. And secondly, it looks like the barge is shorter. I mean, the new break wall is shorter than the original barge by 5 feet. And when I see the sketch, it looks like it's shorter, the new break wall, a little bit, because currently you can see it cantilevering over right now.
Yeah, I'll have to review the plans and touch base with Smith Group to confirm exactly the difference.
Yeah, and then again, it looks great. I mean, Jeff, you're doing a great job. It looks beautiful. It's gonna just bring a lot more to the lakefront of Highland Park. It's gonna set us up front here as far as a community. And lastly is being that they're going to encapsulate this barge, is it less to demolition out of there? Do they still have to take away the whole barge? Looks like they just have to demo the west side more to get in there, and just encapsulate it, whatever's in there now, and not demo the whole thing to save money. Is that what their plan is, or just they still have to take the whole barge out?
No, the structure will be removed. They will
Okay.
not be encapsulating any of it.
Okay, that was just a curiosity out of that. Otherwise, it looks great. Really appreciate all your hard work. So thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public wishing to speak at this time? Hearing none, it looks like we will not be going into closed session. So
Come on.
unless Brian Kaplan, do you have something important to say?
No.
Okay, and just as a reminder, if anybody on the call does have any questions, you can always email Commissioner Executive Director Romes at bromes@pdhp.org. Thanks, Steve Knapp. And that's it. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
And a second.
Second.
All in on that.
Hi.
All right, everybody, have a lovely Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.